evening and welcome to the Stadium Journey podcast. I can't tell you how excited we are that we have actual sporting venues to talk about once again. But when you're out and about at the games, please just be careful, take proper precautions, take care of yourself, take care of your fellow fans, and let's get back to as normal as possible, as soon as possible. And don't forget, today, after you listen to the podcast, go over to our website, stadiumjourney.com. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter. We have a YouTube page. We have an Instagram page. Just, type in @Stadium Journey. You'll find us pretty easily. And the Stadium Journey podcast is proud to be part of the VOC Nation Radio Network. To find our back catalog of episodes, simply search VOC Nation on iTunes or Android, or you can find our library of video podcasts on Stadium Journey's YouTube channel. I mentioned that a minute ago. Or you can check us out at vocnation.com. And some of you might already be there, but for those of you who aren't, we simulcast our podcast live at twitch.tv/danlaw83. You can catch all the excitement live, 8 o'clock every other Tuesday. Or you can just go to the Stadium Journey website, click on the podcast link on the menu. Every podcast we've ever recorded is right there. And let me take a minute and introduce our starting lineup. Joining me, as always, is Dave Cotney. You can follow him online at ProFan9. Mark Viquez is on social media at Ballpark Hunter. You can follow our producer, Dan Calachico, at DanLaw83. And I am Paul Baker. You can follow me at PuckmanRI. And we are very happy to be joined tonight by Stadium Journey's own James Hilchen. James, welcome aboard.
Thanks, guys. How are you?
We're good,
Doing
thanks.
well.
Do you want to take a second and let our listeners know where they can follow you online?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at StadiumJWriter and want to look at some of my ramblings there. I'm on Instagram at, never mind, I forgot what my Instagram is, so I never use it anyway. So carry on.
So, James, we've got you on because one of your jobs, you're like the rest of us, you have multiple jobs.
Many jobs.
But in addition to being part of Stadium Journey, part of being our social media guy for Stadium Journey, you work for the Iowa Cubs, and your capacity there, I've been dubbing you as the official scorekeeper, but what do you do there for the Cubs?
I do official scoring, and I also do data casting from time to time. That's the online version of the game. If you want to watch the pitch by pitch, I do that as well. So those are my two duties at Principal Park.
All right, so keeping score at games, man, that is a lost art, isn't it? I mean, that's something everybody used to do. You say back in the day, everybody used to keep score. But it's something some people still do, but you don't see too much of it anymore.
It is. I actually sometimes scan the ballpark looking for people actually keeping score. Last year, we actually, there's 2 or 3 day games a year where all sorts of schools come out. Last year was really cool because one of the teachers for one of the classes, as an assignment, had his kids keep score of 3 innings of the game. That was their homework for coming. So that was really cool, and it always warms my heart to see that. Last year, we also had a little girl sitting right below us with her dad, and her dad was teaching her how to keep score, and I thought that was very, very cool because we just never see it anymore.
So, what, as the official scorekeeper of a pro baseball team, what are your duties?
Starts before the game. I make sure that the box or the starting lineups make sense. Everybody's on the roster. Make sure that the umpire's rotation is correct. Outside of that, just sit there, wait for the first pitch. Do occasional announcing throughout the game. Announce first pitch time, temperature, all the changes during the game, pinch hitters, positional changes, who's warming up in the bullpen, and then the traditional as well, the call it a hit, call it an error, wild pitch, pass ball, all the typical stuff during the game. So do that, and then once that's done at the end, just hang around, make sure none of the teams have any questions about any of the calls, and about 45 minutes after the game, it's generally a wrap for me.
Now, James, when you say that you do the announcing, now is that like the announcing to the press.
Yeah, sorry,
through the press
Dave. So
box.
yeah, I announce internally, so it goes to the radio booths and the press box, so that they can, they've got a lot to keep track of anyway. So
yeah, for anybody who's ever been in a press box, there's this voice of God that comes over, like especially at a football game, you say that carry was by Tom Brady for 8 yards. So you're the guy who does that at
I'm
the
that
principal
guy.
park, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So is that are you flying solo on all of that, or do you have like a spotter or a helper or anything like that, or?
No, that's all me. Usually, I've got the Iowa Cubs media relations manager is typically in the booth with me, and she is awesome at recognizing players in the bullpen, because bullpens are strategically placed where I can never see the number on the back. So she's good. She can recognize windups and so forth. So I typically rely on her early in the year to get me going on that.
Yeah, I know you were saying, Paul, about being in the press box for football. I mean, football is. I remember being in the press box for a Tiger Cats game, and there's like a whole lot going on. There's like a whole army, and everybody's got their own little job. And there's one dude who spots where the ball was caught, and another dude who spots who caught the ball, and another dude who spots how far the ball went. And there's like, for the Tiger Cats, there was probably about 6 people, and they were the ones that were talking. And then there was a dude at the computer who's punching in everything for the play-by-play and all that jazz.
Yeah, I know as a PA guy, you've got to take in all that information and spit out just the pertinent stuff to the fans out in the stadium. So I know I followed along games, James, before on like MILB.com and stuff, where they have. Is that what you do when you're
That's
talking
what I
about
do, yep.
simulcasting? Is you putting in the pitches and with those really bad 1990s graphics they have?
Right.
So how many of those do you just, we'll call that a slider.
So fortunately, we do not have to add what type of pitch it is. That's only for the major league. We just have to estimate where the ball crossed the plate or outside the plate and just click on the spot. But major league actually has all their gimmicks and their tracking stuff that records all that automatically.
Have you ever had any funny stories from keeping score? Or I know Dave was mentioning before the game, we got to talk about guys like Wade Boggs and David Ortiz, who are notorious for chasing down the official scorers, arguing with them about calls.
Yeah, so there's two stories that stick out in my mind. Prior to being an Iowa official scorer, I lived down in New Mexico, so I did official scoring for the Albuquerque Isotopes. And I remember it well. Albuquerque was playing Oklahoma City, and Esteban Herman was playing third base for Oklahoma City. And Jamie Hoffman came up to bat for the Isotopes. And so the way the press box is set up in Albuquerque, you've got a big row of like counter space where all the media sits. So it's the media guys, the media relations person, the official scorer, and the data caster at the time. I think there's more people there now. But then behind it, you've got a couple counters where the chef would bring in the food in chafing dishes and so forth. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching the game, doing my thing, and it's, I don't know, third or fourth inning. Dinner's done, people are done grazing on it. So usually the people come in and clean up and so forth. So I remember Hoffman stepping into the box, and I remember seeing the pitcher come set, and all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye, I see this orange fluttering, and I turn around and I look, and this chafing dish is on fire. And it's probably about, 2 inches from the wall. So I'm freaking out. I hit an F-bomb because I was like, oh man, we're gonna go up in flames here. So totally missed the pitch, totally missed what happened. So I heard the crack of the bat, realized I should be doing my job, turn around to look in time to see Hoffman crossing first base, and I see Herman at third walking 10 feet in front of him to pick up the ball. So having not seen it, not having a monitor in front of me like I do in Iowa that I can just run it back and see what happened, I have to make a call. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, he's walking up to the ball, so it must have been a swinging bunt that he didn't even try to get. So I called it a hit and went on with it. And so the way it works post game is the media people take the box scores to the managers. The managers then relay any questions they have about any calls. You need to look at them again. So Bobby Jones, the manager of Oklahoma City. I've met Bobby Jones a few times, a very nice guy, very colorful language, but always a nice guy. And he chewed our media relations guy out and said, your official score is not going to change it, but just tell him that was a terrible call, and I'm going to move on with it. So since he was good with it, I went home, but it was kind of bugging me because, I want to get the calls right. So the next day I got back for the next game, and I went to my buddy Chris, who was in the production booth, and I said, hey, can we look at that play just for my own sake? And so he brings it up. It is a two-hopper right to Herman. It would have been an error in Little League. And so I totally blew it, but it's 24 hours later, so you can't change the score. So that was my fire story. And my only other weird thing that's happened to me a couple years ago here, I can't even remember the name of the pitcher, but he came upstairs the next day, which you're not supposed to do. It's supposed to all go through the media. And he said, I need to talk to you about a call last night. I'm going for pitcher of the year. And you missed the call. You called it a hit. It was clearly an error on the second baseman. You need to look at that. And so I was kind of taken aback because I had never been challenged by a pitcher in the press box before, but fortunately our media relations guy was there and basically told him to get out. He said, we'll look at it. I remember the play when he talked about it. The play was a flare to right field where the second baseman was literally running towards right field, looking over his head, sticking his glove out, trying to make one of those basically no-look catches, and the ball went off the end of his glove. So for me to have changed that, I would have had to overturn 100 and some years of scoring to call that an error. But I found it really strange that he tried to throw a second baseman under the bus for, as he said, going for pitcher of the year. And then I looked into his stats to find out that he was not even really close to pitcher of the year in the era. It was 5 when that happened. So I don't really know what he's talking about, but
he was going for it.
He was going for it. Those 3 earned runs, I guess, made the difference between, I don't know, a Cy Young award and not. But other than that, I really don't have anything exciting. Fortunately, it's been kind of a steady go. I mean, people get mad sometimes, but that's part of the job.
Have you ever had to make one of those tough calls where like a pitcher's got a no-hitter into the late innings, and then there's one that's kind of close and you want to keep the no-hitter going, so you call it an error when it's really not an error? Anything like that ever happened to you?
So, no. Fortunately, I've not been in that position. I know somebody that was. And you just, when you get to about the 7th inning, you hope whatever happens, it's clear. It's either a clear hit that, a gapper, or if it's a ground ball at somebody, it just goes through their legs and it's an easy error. I did make a somewhat debatable call on a 7-inning no-hitter here 3-4 years ago, first game of a doubleheader. The person playing first was not a typical first baseman, but in my mind, it was a play that should have been made. So I called an error on him, which kept the no-hitter going. It turned out they got one. So that was the closest I've come, and hopefully the closest I will ever come, because nobody wants to be in that situation. I recall Louisville and somebody 6 or 7 years ago. There was a no-hitter in the 9th, and somebody hit a line drive over the left fielder, and he put his glove up, and it went off his glove. And I think he called it an error initially, and then the call the next 2 days ping-ponged like 3 or 4 times between hitter and error. So it kind of made a joke of the whole thing, and nobody wants to be in that situation. And so you try to make the call in that situation the first time and make it correct. unless it's hugely convincing to change it, you stick with what you call.
So what are the rules on making a change?
So I don't know for the PCL, I can tell you that basically after 24 hours the call stands. The teams, again, when the teams get the box score at the end of the game, they go through it. If they have any questions, they relay that to the media person. Media person brings it back up to us. That's why we stick around after the game. And we typically try to get it situated that night, get everything, kept, changed, whatever you want to call it. And then there is a backup where if they don't like the call still, they can appeal to the PCL. And the PCL will make the final determination. I assume it's like that in the league, but I only have experience with PCL, so I'm not really sure.
Like if they're going for pitcher of the year or something like that.
Right. If they're going for pitcher of the year, they just hang out and they talk to you the next day. Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear somebody actually went up into the press box after you. I thought that was not allowed, like you were saying.
No, it is not. And I'm sure he was told in no uncertain terms that wasn't a cool move.
Amazing to hear that he's tried to throw a teammate under the bus that easily, though.
It was, and if I was the second baseman, I would have been outraged, because for him to tell me I should have made that catch would just be. It was almost like the catch that the famous catch that Willie Mays made in center field. I mean, if Willie had dropped that and somebody called an error, that would have been so egregiously stupid it wouldn't have been funny.
So with your job duties of keeping score, do you ever get the urge to keep score when you're just at a regular game, not working? Or is this job gotten rid of that for you?
I used to. I mean, as a kid I did, and now, to be honest, I'm at every game. But when I travel, I don't. I just sit there and kind of zone out and watch the game. But in my head, I'm always trying to think what's coming. So in that sense, it's kind of taken away from my enjoyment of the game, because I'm always thinking about what everything should be.
Yeah, I used to keep score at games. I've got to blame Stadium Journey for me not doing that anymore, because now when I'm at a ball game, I can't sit there and watch the game for 9 innings, because I'm looking, what are they doing at the concession stand? Let me take a walk around the place.
Yeah.
Or now that I'm also doing PA, I'm always listening to the PA guys. So yeah, scoring.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So how did you end up with this spot with the Cubs? I can't imagine it's like something you go to school for or anything like that.
No, Dave, it's not. Like I said, I started in Albuquerque, and it was just a friend of mine was one of the video guys for the Isotopes, and they needed somebody. Somebody couldn't make it. I don't remember the exact reason, but anyway, my buddy Marty said, "Yeah, James knows how to do it." So, or he doesn't know it. He didn't know I knew how to official score, but he's like, James knows a lot about baseball. He's seen a lot of games. So next thing I knew, I was up there, and apparently they liked what I did, because I got called back. And then 2013, I think it was, we moved to the Des Moines area, and I went down and talked to those guys. I kind of knew Randy Wayhofer, who was the announcer at the time. He's now one of the GMs, but I talked to him, and they needed somebody, so they found me a spot. And the first few years, we lost another couple guys, and now I'm one of 3, but I'm primarily the one doing it now. So haven't missed a game since my kidney stone stint on the DL in 2017.
Ooh,
hopefully that was the last one of those, because that was not enjoyable.
No, I've been through those myself, James, man. I would not wish that on my enemy.
Yeah.
Well, maybe some of them. Jeez,
you
got
become
lucky.
so benevolent there, Baker.
Oh, you got lucky with who you knew, because that's how I got involved with the Paw Sox. Is I knew somebody, but my friend was a bartender, so I ended up flipping burgers for 12 years at McCoy Stadium. I didn't get to do fun stuff like doing the official scoring or anything like that.
Now you must have some days that are just like, this is the worst game ever.
Well, you mean as far as what time, or the way it? I mean, yeah, I've had some I mean, I forget. One time there was 11 errors in a game. That was absolutely brutal. But I mean, most of the time, it's when you get into the summer and it's hot and you worked all day and then you go to the ballpark and then you've got like a 3-hour and 40-minute game, and it's just, the batter's stepping out of the box all the time and the pitcher's stepping off, and it can be brutal. And we complain about it loudly, but I can tell you right now, I would gladly sit through a 3-hour and 40-minute game just to see real baseball again.
Now, have you noticed a difference since they brought in the pitch clock?
No, I really haven't. And to be honest, I think they've done that for 3 seasons, and I don't even know if they've hit double digits in automatic balls because of it. It's very rare. I mean, what I've noticed more is the new extra innings rule, where you, starting in the 10th, you put a person on second base and then play out the inning. I've noticed that seems to have cut down time a little bit, because I think the 11th is maybe the farthest we've gone into extra innings, maybe the 12th once, but I don't know. I'm not convinced that the pitch clock really works as far as cutting time. That being said, I think it's probably here to stay. So
I would dare say that it has more to do with the way baseball's played now. There's just so many more pitches thrown because it's either a strikeout or a home run. You don't see, everybody's deep in counts now. You don't see a lot of guys swinging at the first pitch or the second pitch. So I think that's really the biggest thing. But that's just my personal opinion.
yeah, I mean, they're trying. I don't know. I'm not convinced that long games are a bad thing, although sometimes a Yankees-Red Sox game on Sunday night on ESPN does get a little excessive. But I've never understood the big desire to cut. I'm also a big tennis fan, and when college cut the doubles to pro sets instead of best of 3, I mean, I understand that the guys and gals that play are playing a lot, and they're there to get an education, but they're in good shape. They're young. They can make it through a doubles and a singles match. So I don't understand the desire to make sports shorter, but maybe it's the world we live in today. I don't know.
Yeah, short attention span theater.
Yeah.
Well, when you, I can say this, and maybe Paul, you'll agree. When you're on the Eastern time, and the big guys decide that games need to start at 9 o'clock, on a weeknight or on a Sunday night, like, I got about 2 hours in me tops, and then I'm either not awake or like I'm thinking I'm going to be like a disaster for work tomorrow. So sometimes I wish I had that extra hour that you guys have there in the Central Time Zone.
Yeah, growing up in New Mexico, I always thought that people in the Eastern Time Zone were crazy for having to stay up so late to watch sports. But then, now when the Cubs go on, I'm a huge Cubs fan. When they go on the West Coast, I'm like, geez, I can't do this game ending at 1 o'clock stuff. That ain't working for me. I got to be at work at 7. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, I'll be happy to see baseball when it comes back.
Who would be some of your favorite Cubs that have run through during your tenure there?
For me, I'm going to shout out I'm a huge Junior Lake fan. Junior's in the Mexican League right now. Well, when they're playing, he's in the Mexican League. Junior was an electric guy to watch. He was one of those people that could hit. He hit for power. He was fast. He had a great arm. He never quite stuck, but I always liked him. I still follow him, and he's the main one that sticks out. Taylor Davis is hugely popular here. Well, he's gone now. He's in the Orioles organization, but he was known as the mayor of Des Moines. Everybody loved Taylor Davis. He got very short stints with Chicago, including hitting a grand slam at Wrigley, which I'm sure if you asked him, they would be the highlight of his career. But I mean, I've obviously Bryant and Schwarber and Baez and Kyle Hendricks was here. They've all been through here, but it's the guys that don't make it sometimes that I have more of an attachment to.
So like when the Chicago Cubs were manipulating Chris Bryant's service time, quote unquote, you guys were all giddy down in Iowa.
Well, it sucked, Dave, because we opened the season on the road, so we never saw him here. He got called up for the opening home game. He played, I think they were in New Orleans. It doesn't matter. They weren't here. So he played like 4 or 5 games and he got called up. So we never saw him anyway. We saw him in 2014. I think he came up for like a month maybe at the end of the season. So that was cool. And it was apparent the guy was going to be a star. So, I mean, it's as a Cubs fan, it's cool to see those guys come through. It was really cool to see that really the 2016 team was a whole bunch of guys that had come through here and not a team built in free agency, which they very well may be in a few years because they're going to lose a lot of those guys. Can't afford to keep them all.
So being in Iowa and playing in the Pacific Coast League, that's got to be strange. A lot of long road trips, a lot of late night games for the local Cubs fans. Am I right?
You are. I don't really pay much attention when they're on the road, but my friends that work for the team are, that have to pay attention when they're playing in Tacoma and the game doesn't start till like 10 o'clock here. That's got to be brutal to be up till 1 or 2 in the morning getting the game story done for the website or whatever needs to be done. So with this talk of contraction, it sounds like maybe that might change a little bit. So we'll see what happens.
Right. So how did a team? I mean, and Iowa's not alone in this situation. And they actually, when we had our last Stadium Journey convention, it was held out in Des Moines. It was a great time. The Cubs were wonderful to us, and they kind of explained to us why Iowa and some of those other Midwest teams ended up in the PCL when AAA went from 3 leagues to 2. Can you maybe explain that to our listeners who might wonder why? Well, I'm thinking, what's Indianapolis went to the International League and some Louisville, but Iowa and New Orleans, some of those teams ended up going the other way.
Yeah, I think it was just the density of teams on the East Coast.
Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville, I think, Memphis, and then New Orleans, which is now in Wichita, or would be if they were playing. I think it was just, once the American Association left, you had to balance it as best you could. And you've got Des Moines and Omaha, which are 2 hours apart, but after that, it's kind of a long haul to get anywhere, whether it's Oklahoma City or down to Nashville or Memphis. So we'll see. I mean, there's rumors that St. Paul will become a AAA team and be added to this. So as Mark shakes his head, I'm in agreement. I like what they do. I love what they do.
No. Apparently they said they're not joining, but you know what? Anything's possible. So anything's possible.
It's going to be interesting what everything looks like when this all shakes out, because it's going to be different. Buckle up.
For sure.
So let's talk a little bit about Des Moines and Principal Park. And the Cubs are not the only game in town there in Des Moines. For fans who may not be familiar, it's a great minor league town.
It is. It was actually, and I don't know who did this, but it was named the #1 minor league sports town in America a couple years ago. We have an AHL team, the Iowa Wild, which are the affiliated with the Minnesota Wild. We have the Iowa Wolves, and for the life of me, as I sit here, cannot remember who they're affiliated with, but they're a G League team playing at Wells Fargo Arena, which is also in downtown. And then we have the Des Moines Buccaneers, which is a junior team, and they are pretty well. I mean, they play in a very old, some people would call it a dive, dump, whatever you want to call it, an old sports hockey rink. I love it. It's rickety. It's but it's loud and it's a great hockey atmosphere. So I'm actually almost more partial going to a Buccaneers game just because there's more atmosphere than the Wild do a really good job, but sometimes there's not a lot of people there, so it kind of takes away from the excitement.
Is that junior hockey?
It is
The USHL, I believe.
correct. USHL. Yep. And there's a lot of talk of getting a soccer team in town. They just approved funding for a big soccer stadium that's going to be affiliated with Drake University, and there's potentially going to be a cricket field, which I'm kind of excited about because I've never seen cricket and I've always wanted to.
Yeah, and they also have the Iowa Barnstormers, which
That's right. You're right.
which
the
are
football team.
they're not the original Barnstormers that Kurt Warner played for, but
Right.
they've existed in several leagues. I think they're in the indoor football league right now.
I believe that's what it's called. Yeah,
I'm sure they draw well. I couldn't tell you. I know when we were out there, we saw signs for their playoff game. We just weren't in town to see them play.
I've not been to a game. They play in the same venue that the Wild and the Wolves do, and they seem to. I mean, they seem to have a pretty good following. So I actually do need to check that out sometime.
Yeah.
So how would Des Moines rate as a college town? Because you do have some pretty big colleges around.
We do. We have
But
Drake. Drake is in Des Moines, but it's. This sounds terrible. It's more of an academic school. It's not a big sports school, although the basketball team does have a pretty good following. But the Drake Relays, which are a national track and field event, is played at the football stadium. And the stadium was built for track and field, and there happens to be a football stadium stuck in the middle of it. So football's kind of an afterthought. And if you go to the Drake football game, you will have your own section, basically. So there's not a lot of atmosphere there. But a half hour up the road north, we have Ames, which is where Iowa State is, and that's a great college town. And then about 2.5 hours east is Iowa City, where the Hawkeyes are. So we've got – those are two great college towns. And then we've also got up in Waterloo, we have Northern Iowa. And they've got a dome that they play football in, and they've got a really nice underground basketball arena, kind of like the pit in Albuquerque, where you walk in and everything's below you. So, it's a fun time at all three of those places.
Mark was talking about Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner was a Northern Iowa guy.
He was a friend of mine that I used to work with. She was an athletic trainer, and she was always talking about it. She used to have to tape his ankles, and she said he was the star there. Walk around campus, everybody knew him.
And right around Des Moines, Iowa is really kind of a hotwell for the time being. Is a hotbed of minor league teams. There are 4, 5, 6 minor league baseball teams in the state. 5, Mark? Or is that just a hand being raised?
No, it's 5. You got Cleveland,
5 with Iowa. Yeah,
Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and then of course you have Waterloo, which is a collegiate baseball league.
Yeah, Quad Cities.
Yeah, Quad Cities, Burlington, Clinton, Iowa, Cedar Rapids.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
All right. Yeah, look at that.
And then you have the Sioux Falls, which is a American Association team.
Sioux Falls is there as well. Yeah, forgot about that.
Or sorry, that's South Dakota. Sioux City.
Sioux City is Iowa.
Sioux City, Sarsaparilla. If big Lebowski fans are out there, but of course that could change next year. You can have all 3 of those teams along the mighty Mississippi can no longer be around. How does that affect you, knowing that you're because you're about 2 hours away from all those ballparks, correct?
Yeah, 2.5. Right. It sucks, Mark. I like Clinton and Burlington a lot. I mean, they're very simple stadiums.
Yes.
But it's all baseball, and that's it. Baseball is my favorite sport, always has been, and just go there and sit and watch baseball in its purest form. And there's not a lot of on-field promotion. There's not a lot of extra stuff during innings, and some people might not like that. I think it's great, and if I've seen my last games there, that's kind of sad because I really love those places.
Well, yeah, and then it's also just it's these small towns that you're just wondering what are they doing with baseball stadiums, you know? Like I was in Burlington last year. Very simple ballpark, but down the third base row on a Thursday night, it's a party. There's people there with the buy one get one free beers at that bar. There's really great food. They have something called a chicken lip. Their version of a chicken lip, which is a giant chicken tenderloin that is deep fried and breaded and dipped into buffalo sauce. Pretty big at Iowa Hawkeye games, from what I remember. And then you go up to Burlington, which is a classic 1930s ballpark, covered grandstand. That I love those ballparks. I wish people would bring those back for smaller leagues. And then, of course, Quad City with one of the best views of minor league baseball. To think that those ballparks are going to be on the chopping block just seems surreal to me and not right. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that things could change until the beginning of 2021.
Right.
And another thing with people, I bet a lot of people, when they think of Iowa and baseball, automatically their thoughts will go to Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams, yep.
From Des Moines, if I remember right, it's about a 2-hour ride up to Field of Dreams.
Yeah, 2.5, something like that.
Yeah, I took that ride. It's a boring ride. I won't lie to you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you like corn, it's a wonderful drive.
Great ride,
You are driving through cornfields pretty much the whole way.
Yep.
Is that a popular attraction for locals, or is it just it's over there? We've been there. Done
You
that.
go a couple times, and then when the family comes into town, you take them there. I've only taken my son once. So I need to get him back there. He was really young the first time we went. He had just seen parts of the movie, so he didn't want to walk into the corn because he wasn't sure whether he'd come back or not. But it's a cool place, especially if you go when the corn's tall. It's great, and it's cool because there's people there, but it's not so jammed that you can't go out there and play catch if you want to or whatever. And I'll be interested to see, if this game comes off this year, that Major League Baseball wants to do up there.
That's right.
How that's going to work. I mean, can you have 8,000 people in that still? Probably not. I mean, the state's open, but I don't know. Personally, I think it's better off just to, if it's going to be better in 2021, just wait a year.
I think that probably goes for a lot of things right now, huh?
Yeah.
Paul, you think that drive is dull from Des Moines to Dyersville? Try making the Minneapolis to Dyersville drive. It's pretty dull.
We did Minneapolis to Des Moines. Yeah,
That's pretty boring too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of us out east, there's just not a lot to look at on some of these Midwestern drives, but that's all right. Iowa is. You know what? We talk a lot about underrated places to visit. And, I would put Des Moines right up in the top 10 of that list of places that just don't get enough credit. But when you go there, there's a lot to see, a lot to do, a lot of great food, as we discovered when we went out there with Stadium Journey a couple of years ago.
Absolutely.
And within walking distance of Principal Park, right downtown.
Yeah, downtown Des Moines.
It's a real nice area.
Downtown Des Moines is awesome. Whether you go to a hockey game or a basketball game or a football game or the Iowa Cubs game, within walking distance, you've got some really unique bars. You've got some great food.
Bait shop.
What's that?
The El Bait Shop was one of them?
Yeah, the El Bait Shop.
Oh,
right next to the High Life Lounge. Yeah.
High Life Lounge.
We hit up the High Life Lounge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
High Life Lounge, for those of you, I don't know if we talk about man versus food a lot on this show. We all used to watch that show quite a bit, and High Life Lounge was featured. And so when Pam and I went out to Des Moines, that was one of the places we had to check out. You walk in there, and it's like walking back into your parents' basement, if it was, in the 70s. Yep. It's got the dark paneling on the walls. It's, I think there was shag carpet. I don't think
shag carpet.
Was it on the floor? I don't remember.
Yep, shag carpet on the floor, and then
The old advertisements.
Yeah.
Just
the
loaded
lights.
with neon advertisements on the wall.
Yeah.
And what did we got some bacon wrapped tater tots.
Mhm.
Oh, or jalapeno, bacon wrapped jalapeno tater tots or something like that.
Bacon wrapped tater tots are the big deal there. Yeah.
Out of this world. And then some braised chicken. It wasn't fried chicken. It was braised chicken.
Broasted.
Roasted chicken's a treat if you can get that.
It's great. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't wash it down with a Miller High Life, but man, everything I had there was fantastic. And we actually, you were talking about Drake University. We went out to a barbecue spot right out by Drake University. Jethro's.
Yep.
Ooh, I missed that.
Some great barbecue out there.
Iowa Tap Room's a great place for local beer, like 200 types of beers.
Oh, I missed that one.
I went there with Meg before you guys got there. There was quite a bit of good stuff there. And then, of course, Fong's Pizza.
Fong's Pizza, yes.
Fong's Pizza used to be a Chinese restaurant.
That place is
kept all the decor.
Chinese pizza fusion, yes.
Yeah, it's it's a pretty cool place. Always
what did we get there? Yeah, we got a General Tso chicken pizza.
Mm-hmm.
With it had the chicken chunks on it, and what else was on it? I don't remember. I got pictures of it. I could pull them up, but just
crab ragoon pizza.
Something you would think wouldn't be good, but it works.
Yeah.
And all this stuff is really within walking distance of the arenas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you got the Saturday market, which is one of the biggest markets I've seen in some time. They close off 6 city blocks. Food vendors.
Right.
Fong's is open during that time as well, just to take in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
The Sculpture Garden's really nice. There's some great breweries in downtown, and you're right, all within walking distance of the ballpark. So it really makes for an ideal spot.
Downtown Des Moines has a cool history museum, and you've got the state capitol. The state capitol building, which is a great view from Principal Park. It sits up on a hill. When it's illuminated at night, it's a pretty cool thing to see.
And then, that doesn't get a lot of credit for, you'll see online a lot of times, the best ballpark views, and you see places like Charlotte or Salt Lake, either with the big mountain views or, the cityscape. But Des Moines, you've got this giant golden dome of the State House hovering right over center field. And like you said, James, they illuminate it at night. It's just a fantastic backdrop.
I thought it was, when I went, I thought it was just so flat that I could see all the way to Notre Dame. That's what I thought it was. So as the deprived child who was unable to get to the convention, and when we went to Iowa a few years ago, I guess it was a few years before that, and really we went into Field of Dreams from Minnesota, and then went from Field of Dreams and went to the Iowa Cubs game, and then we were gone the next day. So we didn't really stay too long in Iowa. So what would be the dish, the Iowa or the Des Moines food that if I'm going in kind of fast, I got one day, what's the one thing I got to try?
So I'm probably going to be beat up by Iowa friends for saying this, because the big thing in Iowa is the pork tenderloin sandwich. Iowa's the biggest pork producer, or one of the biggest pork producers in the nation. It's basically a pounded fried pork sandwich. Personally, I am a High Life. Go to a High Life Lounge and get the roasted chicken. If you only have time for one meal, that's it for me. That stuff is great.
Now that's similar to Indiana is the same, isn't it?
Indiana's the birthplace of the tenderloin.
The big pork cutlet thing.
Those are really big out here. Yeah, that's really big out here too, and I guess Iowa claims that. But if you're out here in Indiana, it's this. You can feed 2 people with it. That's how big it is. A very basic sandwich, but very good if you get it right. So I think both places can lay claim to it. I like the made right sandwich when I'm out in Iowa myself. The loose beef burger. I don't know what you think about that, but that's kind of an oddity as well, because you really can't get that anywhere else but at certain places.
I had never heard of that until I moved out here.
What's that, like a sloppy Joe?
It's a sloppy Joe without the sauce.
What's the point?
It's got some kind of it's got something in it that kind of holds it together somewhat, but when they serve it to you, they serve it to you
Yeah.
with a spoon. And,
Yeah.
you put like cheese on it or pickles or mustard, and you just hope, you're going to make a little bit of a mess. But there's a place called Made Right, these little tiny shacks. Well, not all of them. I think some have been improved. But
Yeah.
the ones I've been to are these small little places. And I don't know if you can get them elsewhere besides Made Right. I know Burlington, the ballpark there, have them. So I have a feeling you can get them in various places.
Few people have them. Yeah, I'm not the hugest fan. It's like I can probably do that at home. Just do a pound of ground beef and throw it on a bun. But yeah, people like them, so it's a popular thing out here.
So all right, so we'll expect a royalty check from the Des Moines Chamber of Commerce after this show, because man, we are pumping up this city. But yeah, it's
great. Yeah,
it's a fantastic place to be. Looks like a great place to live and work. And
yep.
I know when I went, we were doing like kind of the big loop. We went up to Minnesota, did a few days in Minnesota, and then basically drove south, and then we hit Kansas City and St. Louis after going through Iowa. And I remember hearing about Field of Dreams, and I had never been like the big Field of Dreams huge fan, in fact, I'm not even sure if I saw the whole thing at that point. But knew of it, got in contact with James, said, okay, is this really worth it or not? And James said, yeah, absolutely, you got to do it. So we drove from Minneapolis to Dyersville. Now, it's about 2 hours out of the way. And this whole time, I'm in the car and I'm sweating because I'm not really sure what to expect. And, my wife is there and she's great. She's a trooper, but sometimes you could just go a little too far.
the farther away you get, the more corn you're driving through.
So yeah, we're driving through this nowhere, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this better be worth it. If this is just like a dirt field and an empty patch, I'm in deep trouble because we've gone 2 hours out of the way, which I was not entirely honest about until we were almost there. How far out of the way are we? Oh, we're only about 2 hours, kind of each way. But it was totally worth it. I made the kids watch 8 Men Out on the way, actually before we left on the trip, and then everybody else watched Field of Dreams while we were in the car, and absolutely had a blast. I think we were lucky because when we were there was a guy who was an extra from the movie who played like college baseball or whatever. I don't know, played one of the players or whatever, and he was just there throwing batting practice, and he was dressed up in the old school uniform. It wasn't like one of those special Sunday games or anything like that. It just happened to be one of those days, and we had an absolute blast. He signed balls for my son. He let him hit a few, and then actually we drove around Dyersville, and one of the things we like to do is if we see like an interesting church or something like that, we'll go in and take a look at the church that's there. And in Dyersville, they have actually quite a large, beautiful church, which you would not expect for that area. So, I mean, I when I think of Iowa, the first thing that pops into my head is relief. Thank God it all worked out. It was all good. And we didn't end up getting the opportunity to stay there too long. I wish we would have had a little bit longer, but that's the life of the road tripper is you only got so much time, and you usually want to fit in more places than you can handle, and that's it. So when it comes to like allegiance, James, like how would Des Moines play when it comes to like its professional allegiance? Or like you got a lot of Cubs fans there, or Twins fans, or split, or
a lot of both, and a lot of Royals fans too. Because I mean, it's 3 hours to Minneapolis and 3 hours to Kansas City. So there are split loyalties here between the three teams. There's a few Cardinals fans here as well. I mean, my exposure is mostly Cubs fans because I'm in Principal Park all the time. But yeah, I mean, a lot of Royals and Twins fans as well. So it's kind of hard to say.
If I go into the hotel and I flick on the TV, what's my regional sports network going to look like?
I think you're most likely to see the Royals. Well, now that the Cubs have Marquee Network, you're certainly not going to see the Cubs. But I think you're most likely to see the Royals and then the Twins. And actually, the White Sox are shown out here. I'm not sure why. I've yet to meet a White Sox fan in Des Moines. Sorry, Mark. But yeah, it's kind of strange. I don't understand the whole blackout restriction things and how they determine what's where. It's kind of confusing.
Well, I think the Sox before the Cubs arrived were the affiliate of the White Sox. I don't know how long ago that was.
You're right. Yeah, the Iowa Oaks.
Oaks. Yeah. Tony La Russa got to start managing.
Right, yeah.
Well, maybe yeah. So maybe that has something to do with it. It's amazing when you look at a ball team that was in a certain town for so many years, how they can still, some of their fans can still stick there. So maybe,
It could be.
Could be.
So yeah,
or
Dave
people
was
can
just
just like
talking
the
about,
White Sox.
Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Or people can just love the White Sox. I mean, that could be it as well, right?
No, that
Possibility.
can't be it.
Possibility.
I mean, Dave was just talking about, planning road trips through Iowa and all the different options. Another thing, and James, I think you mentioned this briefly, that Omaha is only 2 hours to the west. So I know both times I've been to Principal Park, I've done double headers, seen the Cubs in the afternoon and the Storm Chasers at night. And also went over, the last time we went over there, we were lucky enough that it lined up with the College World Series. And that was just a fantastic experience. Mark and I have talked about that many times here. Have you ever been able to experience that?
I did. I was at the College World Series 2014, 2015. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was a great atmosphere. Creighton plays some of their games there, and I went to a Creighton game, and there were, 200 people there in TD Ameritrade Stadium, which was not a good, you could hear the conversations of people because there was nobody in there. But, when the World Series is in town, it's a great place to watch a game.
Indeed. So,
and about an hour west of that, or maybe even less, you've got Lincoln, and you've got the American Association Salt Dogs. In addition to the University of Nebraska football. Yeah.
So is that a pretty decent rivalry, baseball rivalry then? Storm Chasers, Cubs, Royals, Cubs. Used to be Royals, Cubs.
Not really. I mean, really, the whole Cardinals Cubs thing kind of filters down here, and you get, when Memphis comes to town, you've got the Cardinals Cubs thing, and all sorts of people commenting about if you're wearing a Cardinals jersey, they shouldn't let you into the ballpark type of thing. But I'd say Iowa and Omaha are friendly when it comes to baseball.
And it sounds like the rest of the teams, you're talking about the G League team and the AHL team, they're both Minnesota affiliates. I can't think of any other teams in the area in the AHL or the G League. But you do have minor league hockey, or you did have minor league hockey out in the Quad Cities for quite a while, the Mallards.
I think we still do. I think they're still there.
Are the Mallards still there?
Yeah,
no,
I think there's a team in Cedar Rapids as well.
It's the Quad City Storm of the Southern Professional Hockey League are there right now. I think this was their second year. But yeah, the Mallards were there. I think somebody told me once, like, Iowa was really big on their junior hockey, like Cedar Rapids, Rough Riders, and then the Des Moines Buccaneers. God, I'm just pulling these names out of my hat. Waterloo Blackhawks. There's a lot of small hockey arenas that seat about 3,000, but for the price of admission and the specials there and the atmosphere, are very exciting to go to. I know I went to Cedar Rapids a couple years ago, and I was just like surprised about how such a small little place really packed in a lot of bang for its buck. And I think a lot of people like that type of hockey because it's cheap. You know, they see some fights, and every now and then one of those kids goes on and makes it to the NHL. So they have that aspect.
Yeah, Iowa's gotten a lot of. Iowa's a bigger sports state than I thought when I first got out here. I don't know if it's going to go, but next February, I think it was supposed to be the national curling championships are supposed to be in Cedar Rapids, which I'll be going to if they have it. I'd love to see curling in person. But I think it's like a Olympic qualifier, or whoever wins it can try to qualify for the Olympics for America, I think is how it works. So there's going to be some big names there. So I was surprised that Iowa had as much sports as it did when I got here. So I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and hopefully we've educated our listeners on that. I didn't know there was this much. I knew Iowa had a lot of minor league baseball, but man, there's a little bit of everything out there for you.
It's great. And, you know, again, I don't know how contraction's going to fit into this, but you can go to the eastern part of Iowa and literally see, if the schedule falls right, you can see 4 games in 2 days, which is awesome to see small town baseball in Iowa.
Oh yeah,
and all the different ballparks.
And there's also the Herbert Hoover Museum as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, in between Quad Cities and Des Moines, so you can pack a little history into your trip as well.
That's right.
You know, you've got to enjoy all the fruits of the cultural. I can't finish that sentence.
Yeah, no,
we can't live on sports alone.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm thinking if you're traveling with people that are not a big sports fan like all of us, they may want to go see the Hoover Museum. I have a buddy, when he travels, that's what he wants to do, see presidential libraries. He doesn't care about going to 5 ballparks in 4 days like me. When I went to Iowa back in 2008, that was my plan, was to hit 5 ballparks in 4 days. Unfortunately, one of their great floods occurred, and that derailed my trip. So instead of hitting the Quad Cities, the game was canceled because nobody was allowed downtown. And the interstate out to Des Moines was partially flooded in certain areas. And I think that was, I don't know if that was you who wrote that article a few days ago. I was scheduled to see the game where they played with nobody.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I had a press pass for that. So if I had showed up, I would have been one of the people in the press box that day.
Wow.
But it would have taken me about 6 hours to get from, I was in Burlington. No, I was in Clinton. It would have taken me 6 hours to get back. So I wound up just going back home to Indiana and coming out later on that summer. So, yeah. Full of adventures, Iowa.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. A lot of great stuff there, James.
Well, thanks, Paul.
Hey. Oh, anytime. We're glad to have you. We want to thank the Cubs again for hosting us. Geez, it seems like forever ago now, doesn't it? But
it was just a year ago.
That was just last year.
Yeah.
Like around this time, maybe probably.
It was the end of June, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, which is right at the end of June. And to think, I didn't even want to go to the College World Series. I said, Mark, just go. You're 2 hours away. When are you going to be out here again? 1 year later, it got canceled, and so I'm glad I did that. That was a good decision.
Hey, Marcus, speaking of games, you've actually been to a game since we last got together.
Yes, I went to a game this Friday, and you can check out my article on Stadium Journey, complete with a video. I actually did a video of my travel. It was at Victory Field, one of the best minor league ballparks in the country, and they were hosting the Pastime Tournament, which is a group of high school students who were put on teams, and they were playing a tournament that was Thursday to Sunday. Fans waited in line. They had to sign a waiver that they wouldn't sue the Indians or the organization if they were to get sick or contract COVID-19. Everyone's temperatures were taken once you walked into the building. It was only seating from dugout to dugout, and every row in between was separated. So once you got in there was no concessions. The gift shop was closed. All the bathrooms were closed except for one for the men, one for the women. People were encouraged to walk 6 feet apart. But once you got into your seat, everything was like baseball again. It was a really nice night for the game, perfect weather. And the crowd was very enthusiastic for these kids playing baseball. And, for high school kids, the game was pretty good. These are not a bunch of bad baseball players. I didn't really see a difference in the level of play. I thought that both teams were really good. They were hitting the ball, great defense. I really was. I don't know if it was just because I hadn't been to a baseball game since March 7th, but a lot of us were excited. You're also allowed to bring in whatever you wanted. So if you want to bring in a cooler full of beer or sandwiches or snacks, nobody checked, and the admission was free. They didn't charge you. So we're seeing that in a lot of other cities. I know Joliet, Illinois is doing something similar with a baseball league, but they're not allowing any fans into the ballpark. So for one night, my summer was quite normal again. So I'll take it. I'll take what 2020 can give me with baseball.
Absolutely. I was joking around with somebody online, maybe I think it was Dan actually, and said, well, our end of the year recap episode is going to be a pretty quick one this year. But hopefully we're getting back to normal.
I had a quasi visit. Does mine count as a visit?
Do it, man. Yeah. What you got? What you got?
Yeah, where'd you go?
We're desperate for content. What do you got?
Desperate for content. No,
No offense, James.
I had the privilege of the best Father's Day yet. A couple times, I guess not last year because we had the boys softball tournament last year. But the 2 years before that, we had gone to Buffalo on Father's Day, and that was fun. But this year, my wife and kids really pulled out all the stops. They know I'm suffering. February 29th, that's my last game that I went to. So what they did is our typical Sunday routine now is we watch church on YouTube because our church is closed, and then go for groceries and whatnot. So we were actually able to have a little bit of a get together. So we did that on the Saturday. So the groceries and whatnot were done. So I was, after church, I was sent to the office and not allowed to come out again. And then I was told that I needed to put my Blue Jays gear on. So I was then summoned from the office and serenaded down to the family room with OK Blue Jays. And I was given a ticket that my daughter made, and found my seat number on the couch. and we sat I'm sorry, Dan, we watched highlights from the 1993 World Series. And then I was given the concession menu. So we went to the concessions after the highlights, and my wife and kids made helmet nachos and
Nice.
beef on weck and chicken and waffles. And then they did the
And it cost you $40.
it cost me nothing. Although I was sitting there, of course I'm being super polite about, and I'm in heaven, right? But I'm being super polite, going through my head, how the hell am I going to eat all this? But I did have a sampling of everything. Then my son did the 3 red cups with the ball, and figure out which, as they're mixed up, figure out which one was had the ball. I got it right. It's really a lot easier when you can actually hear the ball rolling on the table. You don't get to do that on the screen. And then we watched the mascot race. We watched they found a clip on YouTube with the celery and chicken wings and the blue cheese, and it was the last ever mascot race for celery, which of course celery won. And then they pulled out the plastic helmets. They didn't have to go to you, Paul, to borrow a little ice cream helmet. But we had some helmets. Dan, my son, used the Phillies helmet, so you should be proud of him for that. And we had ice cream sundaes in the helmet, and they played "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and we had a fantastic Father's Day.
It sounds like a blast.
It was absolutely fantastic.
I'm going to go complain to my kids now. I just got some phone calls. I actually spent the day with my father and then my father-in-law, so it was a good day. We didn't get to do our usual tradition on Father's Day is to head down to Cape Cod and catch 2 or 3 games depending on the schedule. But it was still a good day. So I guess that's about all the time we have for tonight. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And it's great to have actual trips to talk about, wasn't it? It's been since March,
weird.
like you said. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and hopefully soon there'll be some visits for you with Cardines Field.
We'll get to that in a minute.
We'll get to that.
So, James, thanks for joining us tonight. Do you want to let our listeners know one more time where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, you can follow me at Stadium J Ryder on Twitter, and I do tweet stuff when I'm allowed to travel and see games, which isn't right now, but hopefully at some point that'll happen again.
It's a lot harder when you work for a team, isn't it?
It's awful being at the ballpark so many times every year. But the Waterloo Bucks are starting up in next month in the North Woods League, so I'm gonna try to head up to Waterloo and see a game, at least one, and looking forward to it, guys. I really miss it.
All right. And James also runs, for those of you, I don't know if we mentioned it before, he runs our social media channels. Stadium Journey just got our 5,000th follower on Facebook. So thank you to everyone who's following us on Facebook. And, feel free to give us your input, topics you want to see for the podcast, input on our reviews, things you want to see on the website while we're waiting for sports to jump back up. So we appreciate the feedback. Dan is incommunicado at the moment, but you can follow him at danlaw83. Mark, we got 2 weeks till we get together again. You got any trips planned for the next fortnight? I love using the word fortnight.
You know what? I would like to go up to Michigan to see some baseball, but I have a feeling I may be in Whiting, Indiana to check out the Midwest Collegiate League. They're going to house all their teams at Oil City Stadium. That could be a possibility. I know the wife doesn't want me traveling out of state anywhere. So, find out where I go. You can follow me on Ballpark Hunter on Twitter, Instagram, or on YouTube. I have videos every week. So hopefully there'll be some brand new content this summer with some of my adventures.
Isn't it funny that we're getting so excited over just being able to go to a small park?
Yeah, exactly. Like Oil City Stadium, I'm there. It's 2 hours away, and that might be the closest I can get to because Kokomo is in the North Woods League, but I don't know what their plans are for this summer. I know some of the teams are doing hub cities this year, but I don't know what North Woods is doing. I don't know what Kokomo's doing. So,
well, all right. We look forward to seeing your videos and hearing about your travels, Mark. Dave, how about you? Any trips planned for the next couple of weeks? And where can our listeners follow you online?
You can follow me on Twitter at ProFan9. Everything is still pretty much shut here. Looking forward to the Major League Soccer tournament, which starts on July the 8th. But other than that, the literary journey is continuing. And as part of my Father's Day present, I just started what I think might be the ultimate kind of stadium journey book. It's by John Feinstein. It's his latest one. It's called The Back Roads to March. And it's all about these little small colleges where if they actually make it to the Final Four, it's huge. So, so far it's a good read. I just finished the first chapter was all about, the Big Five in Philadelphia and basketball, college basketball at those smaller schools in Philadelphia. So nowhere on the horizon other than my den and the balcony and wherever else I am going to sit and read my book. So at Twitter, at ProFan9.
Right. And you can follow my stadium journeys on Twitter or Instagram at PuckmanRI. And I actually have plans for the next couple of weeks. I'm going places. The Futures League is starting their season up on July 2nd. So I actually had a 5-day mini vacation set aside where my birthday is on July 1st. We were going to go to Boston and then head out to Pittsburgh and follow the Sox out there. But since that isn't happening, we got Plan B in place. So the Futures League starts up on the 2nd. So I will be in Nashua for opening day, and then I will be in New Britain for the next day. I'm going to be at baseball games. I'm so excited. I can't believe it. To go to Nashua, New Britain, and Brockton, places like that. But I'm excited. Again, you can follow me at PuckmanRI. And until next time, don't forget to check out our website, stadiumjourney.com. Follow us on Twitter or Instagram. And Instagram. You can do them both at Stadium Journey. You can find the Stadium Journey podcast at vocnation.com, or just search VOC Nation on iTunes or Android. You'll find the podcast that way. Check out the video simulcast of all of our podcasts on Stadium Journey's YouTube page. And don't forget, we simulcast all our episodes live at twitch.tv/danlaw83. And we will all be back in 2 weeks. Our plans are a little bit up in the air at this time, but we're going to be here, and I guarantee it will be awesome. So again, thanks to James Hilchen for joining us tonight. For Dan Calachico, Mark Viquez, and Dave Cotney, I'm Paul Baker. Until next time, everyone, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.